Hey, I'm Espen Kraft, thank you so much for watching. And today is going to be a really fun day because I've accepted a challenge. The good guys at Nektar, they contacted me, and a nice guy named Ralph, he said, Espen, do you want a real challenge? I thought about it and I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, if we send you our keyboard controller Nektar T6 and a copy of Bolt, our VST plugin synthesizer, could you make a track using only that? Well, I thought about it and I said,
do it! Do it!
So they sent me the gear, and today I'm going to check it out and see if I can really make a track using only that. And rest assured, even if this is a paid promotion, you will get my unbiased opinion about it, and that's okay with Nektar as well. Okay, let's go.
Wonder why you send me silence, and I do, because you do. And what you do behind my back is nothing but a love attack. Now I understand. Will you lose your way now, honey? And while I'm awake, you will stay in line.
So let's check out the features of the Panorama T6 master keyboard. You have 5 octaves, 61 keys. That's a minimum for a master keyboard. Pitch bender, modulation wheel, octave buttons, key and pad repeat buttons, and you have faders and you have buttons below those. And these faders and buttons can be set up to do different things. You can program them to do all kinds of things depending on the program you use. I'll get back to that later. The faders and knobs and encoders have a nice feel to them as well. The display in the middle shows you different kinds of information depending on what program or app you're using. I used Reaper for this entire exercise, and the integration between the Panorama T6 and Reaper worked flawlessly for the entire time, so that worked well. 8 programmable rotary data encoders and a transport section, and 8 drum pads, which I only used in the music video for show. At the back, MIDI DIN out, USB port, and sustain pedal input and expansion pedal input. Well, I've used the Roland Alpha Juno 2 as my master keyboard for many years, and I love the feel of those old late 80s Roland keybeds. So getting used to playing on another keyboard as a master keyboard has been kind of interesting. I've used this exclusively for a couple of weeks now, and I'm starting to warm up to it. All keys responding to aftertouch, which my Alpha Juno does not, because I haven't fixed it. It is a synth action keybed, but the feel and resistance reminds me of playing a piano. That's not always a good thing, because when I play synth bass or synth brass, I like to have as light and as snappy keys as possible, and this gives me a bit more work when I play. The master keyboard itself has a lot of features like the faders, knobs, buttons that I can program to do different things. It's just the keys that takes a little while to get used to for me in this case. Bolt works similar to additive synthesis, but does the complete sound inside one oscillator. You have two oscillators, oscillator 1 to the left and oscillator 2 to the right. And you have a graphical representation of what you're making in the display here in the middle. And everything is actually built into the harmonics knobs here. So you add or take away frequencies, harmonics in the oscillators, and that will give you a sort of filter type of sound if you want to. So there's no ordinary filters going on here. So that makes it kind of unique in a way. This is a more visual representation of what the Kawai synthesizers did in the late 80s, perhaps, in a way, in a small way. You have ordinary ADSRs for both oscillators and for the modulation as well. And you have 3 LFOs. And these LFOs are really the only place in this window where you have tabs for other menus. Everything is in this whole image, as you can see. So there's no hidden submenus except for those 3 tabs for the LFOs. I like that. Everything is out in the open. When I made or started up working on this track of mine, which you heard, I went through the presets that comes with Bolt, and there's a lot of presets, and some of them sound really good, but very, very few was suitable for 80s synth-pop music. I think most of them had a sort of industrial EDM, more modern dance type of sound, not unlike plugins synths like Omnisphere and stuff like that. A lot of things going on in the sound and not very usable for more simple, streamlined synth pop, chart pop music, which I like from the mid-80s and up. So I had to make a lot of sounds myself, which was really fun because I like this synthesizer a lot. So I've made quite a few presets of my own, actually. You see some of them here. I've made a lot more since I actually did this recording. So let's hear one of my sounds from the song, this soft pad. And now I can check out the harmonics. So it can go from very soft to bright. Noise, sub-oscillators, detune. I have buttons called deep, inverse, and odd. If I press the odd button, I'll add only the odd harmonics in that spectrum. So very cool. So this is a synth that really stands apart from a lot of other plugin synths. On this you have to work a little bit different than you're used to, but that can yield interesting results, and I found a lot of good ways to tailor in the sounds I wanted for the song I've made. So sounds from this plugin synth layered with maybe other types of synthesizers could yield some really new nuances, and you could sample that, of course, if you want to, into one new sound. So what about the drums? Well, these are synthesized as well. Everything is done inside Bolt. Bolt is not a sample-based plugin. So I admit I had to work hard. So to get a more convincing pop kick, like a Lin kick, I really had to layer sounds and processing sounds, compressing sounds using EQs. And Bolt itself comes with a very good effect section down here with reverb, delay, chorus, etc., EQ. So I used that and some outboard effects, external effects as well, to get my drum tracks going. But there are a lot of cool analog sound, type sound, percussion sounds, drum sounds in Bolt. Let's hear a few. There's an electronic snare, more reverb, gated snare. Let's check out some of the kick drums. Hats. So these are types of sounds you also could hear on analog drum machines in the late 70s. So I think Bolt is highly capable of making these type of drum sounds. What about the arpeggiator? You heard my arpeggiating going on in the song. And while you don't have a arpeggiator section in Bolt, you can use the LFOs to set up cycles. And this is basically how I set up my arpeggiating in this song. You set the speed of the LFO, and the speed can also be synced to the tempo of the project you're working on. I had the occasional dropout there from overloading the processor, so I apologize for that. And you can of course turn off sync, so you can have free running LFOs, depending on what type of sound you want to create or what you want to use the LFO for. And I also wanted to try to control the parameters in Bolt from the Panorama T6, and that's actually very easy to do. The T6 is USB class compliant, so there's no drivers needed. Once you have installed the DAW integration software, everything runs smoothly. And all you have to do is go to the T6, press the instrument button, and hold down Shift on the T6, and then touch with the mouse the fader or knob you want to control. So I'm pressing Shift, turning the harmonics button here, and then let go of everything, and then just touch a physical fader on the T6. So now my first rotary encoder on the T6 controls the harmonics of Bolt. Press down Shift on the T6, just touch upon that knob here, release, and touch the other encoder on the T6. So now I can control both at the same time. Easy peasy, nothing to it. Excellent functionality. So how about DAW Control from the T6? Well, that's very easy. Once installed, this will integrate with all the major DAWs at the market. I'm using Reaper here. So now I have the transport section ready to go, and the faders and buttons will now act as level and mute buttons. As this is now fully integrated with the DAW I'm using, the display on the T6 will show me track names, the pan levels, the levels for the tracks themselves, etc., etc. And I can now also use the rotary encoders to the right to pan a track if I want to, directly from the T6. So let's try that. Works very well. So what about the song itself? And I'll break down the chords for you. But I'd like to tell you that I often set myself a set of parameters, limitations before I start working on a song. And that can be in the composition as well. Some things I just want to have in the composition. And in this case, I wanted to have the last chord of the verses to also be the first chord of the chorus sections. So when I end the verse on the A chord, I also start the chorus on the A chord. And I also wanted the last chord of the choruses to be the first chord of the verses. So in this case, the last chord of the chorus is the G major 7. And therefore, the first chord in the verse is the G major 7. So have that in mind when I break down the chords for you. Here they are. So there you have it, my song Brass on the Titanic, made using only Bolt and this Panorama T6 controller from Nektar. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I'm highly interested in your opinion. As always, I'm Espen Kraft and I am the 80s. A big thanks to Nektar for sending me this gear to check out. Also a big thanks to my Patreon supporters that makes it possible for me to do this on a weekly basis. I love you all. So until we see each other next time, cheers.